Welcome back. We're evaluating the state of human rights in the country, just juxtaposing ourselves with the just released Human Rights Watch Report 2025 that highlights various developments that have played out in various countries, including Kenya. In studio, I'm joined by Mausi Segun. She's the Human Rights Watch Africa Director. And right before we continue with our deliberations, we just want to hear some sentiments shared by human rights activists following the abduction and subsequent release of the Kenyan-based Tanzanian activist Maria Sarungi, which happened recently. Let's listen in.
Considering Kenya recently ascended to a seat in the UN Human Rights Council, this is a very dangerous precedent to Kenya, considering that we host very many expatriates in this country. Kenya is set to become one of the largest, I think the third largest UN hub in the world. And when foreign nationals do not feel protected, they don't feel secure in this country, then this is really dangerous.
So it's not just Kenyans who don't feel secure. It seems that even foreign nationals might not be too secure after all. If the recent developments are anything to go by, we well know of Kizza Besigye and his controversial arrest right here in the country and subsequent court-martial in Uganda. And needless to say, the Tanzanian activist Maria Sarungi is the most recent scenario. Now, Mausi, Kenya used to be a place for refuge for Kenyan nationals, a beacon of hope for those looking for a space where their democratic rights and freedoms would be respected. What can you highlight from the report in terms of Kenya's approach when dealing with foreign nationals who might be wanted back home in terms of one or two issues here?
So the right to one safe passage, whether you're traveling through or a place of refuge, is protected by both international and regional human rights law and humanitarian law. Now, what used to be the Organization of African Unity Convention on Refugees is now, we call it the AU Refugee Convention, is the strongest in terms of protection of refugee rights in the world. And one of the few countries on the continent that paid a lot of regard to the provisions of that convention was Kenya. I'm speaking in past tense deliberately, because as your report just showed, there were many people who would flee persecution. There are many reasons why people flee their homes. It's persecution, it's repression, it's oppression. It's, economic migrants. There are many reasons why people would leave their countries and be elsewhere. Now, as long as they are legitimately within that country, the territorial space of that country, and have not committed any crime, even where they have committed crimes, there is a legal process for extradition, for repatriation. There is a law on non-refoulement, on non-forcible return of people to their home countries that they had fled for whatever reasons. Now, where the two recent cases that you mentioned are just the most recent. We have had Turkish nationals abducted from here. We have had Rwandan nationals abducted from here. We have had Nigerian nationals abduction. South Sudanese, at some point, it was almost every other month that the South Sudanese refugee asylum seeker in Kenya would be abducted. It is in violation of Kenya's obligations under that convention and under international law. If people have any, a government has issues with their nationals, well, if you go to the courts, go through the legal process, extradite them formally. Don't abduct people. It is insidious, it is unhealthy, it is not safe, and it is not good for the reputation of this country.
Quite so, especially when we're hosting the United Nations offices here. It doesn't send a good picture. But let's shift focus just briefly to violence against women and girls, because it's equally being highlighted in the report, where last year, between July and August, body parts, unfortunately, were found in the Quarry dump site right here in the capital, Nairobi. And this sort of comes in the backdrop of high rates of femicide that have been reported in the country. There's a task force that has been formed by the president to combat GBV and femicide crisis. What does the report briefly highlight when it comes to femicide cases and perhaps the solution here? What should we do to pluck out these bad vices?
We do highlight in the report that those cases are on the rise. It could be a couple of things. It could be that there is more reporting happening. It could be because more people are able to go on their own to investigate what happened, because a lot of the times it's just a missing person's case until information is revealed. Oh, it was a boyfriend they were seen with last. They were with another girlfriend until the last time they were seen. And the fact that these reports have generated very few prosecutions. One, first of all, investigations, and then prosecutions. It is the job of the police to make everyone, but especially women and girls, safe in the environment that they live in. And where their rights have been violated, that people, the reports of these abuses are taken seriously. It speaks to a mindset about women. First of all, within the society, the way that women are treated, the way that women are perceived, women who are strong, women who are making their way in life, are they seen as threats to some male person in their lives' existence or their visibility? I think the question needs to be asked. What is the driver behind this violence? Whether it's within the domestic space, in the workplace, because that's happening as well, you know, where people have their businesses, and elsewhere. And why is there impunity for those who are carrying out these dastardly acts?
Yeah, those are key questions that we need to interrogate, even as it's out there that the main suspect behind the Quarry murders is still at large, unfortunately. So as we finalize, Mausi Segun, your report just doesn't cover Kenya. It covers other countries in the region and beyond. Let's talk about the regional shifts that we are seeing when it comes to human rights. Closer home, Sudan, Ethiopia, we well know of the atrocities by warring parties. Talk to us about what Kenyans need to know about their regional neighbors and some of the issues that are playing out, quite briefly, if you could.
I think the first thing is that no country is an island to itself. What happens in one country in the region affects the entire region. What's happening in Sudan is affecting neighboring countries, including Kenya. There are now many more Sudanese asylum seekers and refugees here in Kenya. The horrible atrocities that are taking place there, Kenya and the Kenyan government has an opportunity to push the African Union and the East African community to do more. To protect the lives of civilians who are caught between the fight between those two generals. Ordinary people who have no skin in the game. They need to be protected. And so a protective force, the African Union needs to push for that. And I think that the Kenyan government has a unique position to push for that. The second is to ensure that there is an arms embargo that stops the sale of arms to the warring parties, because this is how the killing is happening. And then finally, to ensure that as we and others continue to document these abuses, that they are taken into consideration and as evidence to ensure that those who are committing these war crimes and, as has been said, genocide against ordinary people, whether in Darfur or elsewhere, are held to account.
That's well noted. That's all the time we had. So much to talk about, but in case back at home you feel free to take a look at the report that's just been released by the Human Rights Watch, documenting how human rights has trended throughout the year 2024. We were joined in studio by Mausi Segun. She's a Human Rights Watch Africa director who's in the country, all to do with the launch of that report. Thank you so much for your time. We definitely hope for more interactions as we canvass the human rights space in Kenya and the region as well. That's how we take a short break. Coming up,